On the 26th day of July, the convoy enters La Rivière de Détroit. Looking over the bow of his canoe, Simon Drouillard rubbed his eyes in delighted amazement as he obtained his first glimpse of the southern shoreline where La Rivière aux Daindes enters. Today, known as Turkey Creek, it flows partially in the city of Windsor and the town of LaSalle. The birds were singing a welcoming song. Jean-Baptiste told his son Simon, "See how little forest there is to clear? And I have good news for you, Simon. De Larry has noticed your enthusiasm and hard work, your spirit and boldness of heart. He has interceded with Le Commandant Sabrevois on your behalf, and you will receive a deed of land for your very own, right here near La Rivière aux Daindes."
Simon's thrill of land ownership. After such an exhaustive trip, building a house of love so quick, shelter from winter's chilling grip.
Simon set to work at once and constructed this type of log house on his deed of land, 3 arpents wide, fronting on La Rivière de Détroit, and 40 arpents in depth, about 100 acres. Tiny by our standard, about the size of a single-car garage, Simon's log house measured 10 feet by 12 feet and 8 feet high with a bark roof. Consulting again Father Ernest J. Lajeunesse book, we learned that in addition to the deed of land, each inhabitant received 6 hand tools, 1 kettle, 2 pairs of shoes, 1 gun, 8 pounds of gunpowder and 24 pounds of lead, 1 tomahawk, 1 pair of leggings, 1 4-point blanket, and enough seed for a year's planting. The search for the spirit of the seeds of Ontario now enters a new phase as we begin our quest to pinpoint the location of Simon Drouillard's farm and the land that felt the bite of his plow. Here, we calculate, is the general area, and here should be the exact location of Simon's land. If correct, some signs should remain. We know that lands were divided by tree lines instead of fences. Even to the present day, these dividing tree lines still clearly exist and correspond perfectly with the property survey maps. Fortunately, much of the land is still undeveloped, a part of Ontario's Ojibwe Provincial Conservation Area. Simon's farm traverses part of the now popular Windsor Raceway and follows along the right side of Sprucewood Road in Sandwich West Township. After crossing the Ojibwe Parkway, it then follows down to the shoreline of the Detroit River. We learn that Simon's log house location is now occupied by the huge co-op grain elevators. It is here where Simon used to park his overturned canoe and shelter his family and plant his seeds. What historic irony that these grain elevators, built on the land where Simon Drouillard was to erect his pioneer grain or grist mill, now houses this huge enterprise, as if sprung from the seeds of Simon Drouillard's mill. As if in defiance of change, the prairie grass of Simon's time still survives here, a kind of testament to Simon and all those tenacious pioneers.
Here's the land that felt the cutting of Simon's plow trenching, the bite of his axe in the trees failing, pioneer tendency unswerving.
If we look south from Simon Drouillard's former log house, we see the Morton salt mine. And again, how ironic when one contemplates the acutely severe shortage of life-preserving salt which plagued the pioneer settlers when all the time they were sitting on top of one of the biggest salt deposits in the world. Here, faithfully reproduced in Father Lajeunesse's book, is the document illustrating Simon's skill and craftsmanship. Easy to see why in July 1780, the commandant at Fort de Détroit granted this petition for Simon to build a grist mill on Rivière aux Daindres. The list of petitioners reads like a who's who of our first Ontario pioneers: Bondy, Pouget, Réaume, Cloutier, Lemay, Belperche, Duhaut, Lafont, Dufour, Lebeau, Meloche, Perret, Tarangeau, Drouillard, Pitre, Charon, Nags, Renaud, Belair, Fontaine, Bouzon, Feignant, Pimperet, L'Espérance, Prou, Revaux. Not only would this fragile pioneer community have foundered without a desperately needed grist mill to grind the hard grain kernels into life-sustaining flour, but there are very good reasons to believe that this mill erected by Simon Drouillard was the first commercial industrial enterprise in the province of Ontario. Reproduced here from registry records, it is noted that Simon operated the mill for 11 years and sold it to a J.B. Ferret in 1791. Also note the incalculable wisdom of Simon in requesting payment in always negotiable flour rather than currency, which could become non-negotiable as the French money recently had due to the British conquest. A search for Simon Drouillard's mill site should be professionally carried forward and suitably marked as a National Historic Site. As incentive, we offer here our best efforts toward locating the probable site of Simon's mill. Our initial investigations have proven to be rewarding. Our first clue was the visible depression of land on the north side of the Sprucewood Road Bridge, which crosses Turkey Creek, Rivière aux Daindres, just west of Malden Road in Sandwich West Township. This indicates a former mill pond, and the abrupt narrowing of Turkey Creek just a little south of the bridge must surely indicate the mill site is nearby. Consulting a Windsor street map, we trace the probable location of Simon's land and take to the air to continue our search. Overflying the general area formerly occupied by those pioneer families, the Windsor Raceway track ovals are clearly visible, thus orienting us for positioning Simon's farm location. We now descend so we can more easily focus in on the Turkey Creek area. Sprucewood Road now becomes identifiable, and also the Sprucewood Road Bridge. Notice how the long, wide former mill pond north of the bridge is still discernible, and how there is a constricted flow a little south of the bridge, here marked with a red circle. Excitement grows as we could be well looking at the site of Simon Drouillard's mill, and here could be the location of Ontario's first commercial industrial enterprise, the water-powered grist mill of Simon Drouillard, erected in 1780.
And Ontario's people always will feel their first commercial mill, a testimony to
On Sprucewood Road in Sandwich West Township, just off Malden Road, at the bridge over Turkey Creek, on your right, you will notice the mill pond site, which still floods in springtime. We have good reason to believe that an archaeological dig in this area would uncover the exact location of this remarkable pioneer enterprise. Since this remains to this day undeveloped land, a most intriguing question arises. What happened to the mill and its buildings? In our endeavors for an answer to this question, there occurred one of the most rare chance discoveries that quicken the heart. While searching for blue heron on a photographic field trip to the Big Creek Conservation Area, we stumbled upon this ancient log building, sitting on a tiny island off Knapp's Island. Share our adventure of discovery as we cross over the footbridge to the tiny island to examine more closely what appears to be a very old building. Although there are a few renovations apparent, this is indeed a very old building. Examine the hand-hewn timbers, the dovetailed corners, the use of wooden pegs in place of nails. Our research shows that the island probably got its name from Benjamin Knapp, a private in Butler's Rangers. And the entire Big Creek area of 7 square miles was granted to Lieutenant Colonel William Caldwell of Butler's Rangers in consideration of his military service. This log building is much larger and the timbers too massive for a home of that period. The typical log dwelling of pioneer days measured much smaller than this, usually 10 feet by 12 feet. The building here on Knapp's Island rests on skids, indicating it was moved here from somewhere else. A visit to the Province of Ontario Registry Office uncovered a large, heavy, handwritten volume entitled The Caldwell Grant. In meticulous, closely handwritten pages, herein are recorded the property transactions occurring within the Caldwell land grant area. After reading back through 17 successive owners, the volume discloses that this building was once owned by one Normand Jubanville. He owned it from about 1860 to 1867, and during that period renamed the island Jubanville Island. The Drouillard family provides us with a most intriguing connection to the log building. The link is, in February of 1849, Basile Drouillard married Angelique Jubanville. Could it be that this unusually large log building, large enough to house machinery transported from another site upriver, traced in family ownership, could this building be what remains of a family grist mill? Specifically, could this building be the grist mill erected by Simon Drouillard upriver on La Rivière aux Daindes in 1780? Could it be that this building, in defiance of the ravages of time and the forgetfulness of people, still stands as a memento and testament of a distant time when seeds were first planted and enterprises first begun? It does seem to cry out to me, forget not. Forget not your seeds, the first pioneers, their struggles, their nobility, their hopes, their spirit. Forget not Simon Drouillard. Forget not the spirit of the seed called Voyageur. Forget not l'esprit voyageur, lover of the land, jealous of the seed, careful builder, generous and bold of heart. If this story of a search has led us to forget not Simon Drouillard, it also tells us not to forget the stories of the other first Ontario pioneers, the seeds of Ontario. Forget not their spirit.
Bondy, belle pêche, bel air, beaux hommes, Cloutier, Charon, Dupuis, Drouillard, Dufour, Fontaine, Feignard, Jubanville, Nags, Langlois, La Jeunesse, Lemay, Lafont, L'Espérance, Marantette, Meloche, Ouellette, Pimparé, Potier, Paré, Proux, Pouget, Pitre, Parent, Réaume, Renault, Revaux, Tourangeau, Toua.
Hey, can you feel it coming? Hey, can you see the glow? Hey, people joining in to celebrate Ontario. Hey, can you see it happening?